Side Lachenko at center ice, cuts to the middle, across the blue line, now backpedaling, makes a move through the defense, drives all the way to the net, he scores! What a goal by Jet Lachenko, a power play goal, a fantastic goal by the former London Junior Knight and first round pick in the priority selection last season.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
And we are back. Yes, it is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 228, brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com, Summit Adjusters, and Jim South Street. Jim South Street. Let's talk about that before we get into things. 400 South Street, 40 years of the finest cheesesteaks and hoagies in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. You know you want one. So if you live down there, 400 South Street, make sure you use Grubhub, DoorDash, whatever it takes to get that delicious food to your door. You know you want it. So next time you want the best cheesesteak, get down to Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Flyer prospects tonight. And just to let everybody know, our buddy, the great Dan Silver, is in the land of the rising sun, if I remember properly, on a work assignment. So what was to my left, Chef B? What's the word you got for us tonight, man?
Well, I guess it's a 7-year anniversary today. We've been doing this podcast, so this is awesome. I can't wait to keep doing more stuff here. I can't wait to get started on the season and start talking prospects with Steve. So without further ado, let's, I'll kick it back to you. Let's get this rolling.
Okay, gotcha. And just before we introduce our guest, I just wanted to pass along some well wishes to our good buddy, Johan Gartner. He took to social media this past week and let everybody know that he's battling pancreatic cancer. We've had Johan on a couple of times, and he's such a great guy. And him, he had a podcast, Flyer Podding, with his buddy, and everybody loves this guy in Flyers Twitter, and we know that Johan is going to beat this thing. So we're just sending out our best wishes and good vibes to him, and God bless him. He's a great guy. Chef, anything on that?
Nah, man, you said it all. We love him. We miss him. So if you have a chance, reach out to him, give him well wishes. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
You got it. And without any further ado, let's bring on from the draftanalyst.substack.com and at the Draft Analyst on X, the great Steve Kournianos. How you doing, man?
Chef Isaiah, thank you for having me on as always.
Yeah, it's great to have you, man. It's a really good time to kind of take a deep breath after the draft. In episode 227, we're kind of lukewarm at best about the Flyers draft. And of course, we had the opportunity to listen to some of your feedback with our buddies over at Flyers Nitty Gritty, and you were more sanguine about what they did. And maybe just give us a capsule summary before we get into kind of like a comprehensive look at the Flyers pipeline, 10, 12 players that are significant right now for the O&B.
So I just want to say that I definitely like their draft class, but there was a little bit of a different feel to it this year than last year. Remember, last year was like a ton of excitement. It seems like everybody was on board with pretty much every pick that they made. They had 2 first-round picks. They got Mitch Kov, and obviously he's the centerpiece. But this year's draft was a little bit different because they made some moves. They also were in a position to draft 1 or 2 of the more popular players, or the consensus popular players, and opted to go for someone that was seen as a riser, who's a very good prospect. And we saw that at the World Junior Summer Showcase, and center Jet Lachenko. But I think it took Flyers fans, not all Flyers fans, but a good chunk of the fan base, some time to really let it all sink in that, all right, this is what we got. What was the strategy behind it? Why did they go, let's say, center heavy? They said they wanted to address centers. They did. I loved every center that they drafted. And so the theme, even though they passed on Zeev Boyum, who would have been automatically, I think, the most prolific defense prospect in the pipeline, or even in the organization, at least upside-wise, more so than Jamie Drysdale or Cam York. I think part of that was that when Briere said, well, we have Cam York and we have Jamie Drysdale, so we didn't, I could see why some Flyers fans would be a little upset about that, because Boyum was a pretty high-scoring defenseman in college as a freshman, and some people think he might even have Adam Fox-type upside. So to pass on that for a center like Lachenko, even though it is a organizational need, then again, the power play was pretty bad. So I think what you're doing is you're addressing the power play with a pretty good playmaking center and power play specialist instead of the defenseman. But now that we saw this World Junior Summer Showcase, I know it's just one summer tournament. It's in a way a glorified scrimmage. A lot of those kids know they're going to make the World Junior teams anyway. A lot of the rest are going to be battling for spots if they make it. The Flyer prospects, not only do they have the most prospects at the tournament of any NHL team, but they played, like, collectively, they were the best group, I thought. So a lot of positives to extract from that. But I don't, like the Briere and Jones don't hide what they're going to do. Like they said, they're going to change the culture. They want to go out and they want to address certain needs of positions. Remember last year, the right defense was a question mark before the draft. They went and they addressed it with Bonk and Southern and I think Mateo Mann, right? I'm pretty sure Southern's a righty. And then this year they said they didn't hide from the fact they wanted to adjust center ice position, and they got 3 really good ones in Lachenko, Berglund, and Rohonen. And even Powell, who was playing center at the World Junior Summer Showcase, was pretty impressive there as well, even though he's listed as a wing. So I didn't have a problem with it. I gave him a pretty high grade. There wasn't anything funky going on. The only reach that they made, I thought, was in the 7th round. It's like a long-term project. You won't even call it a reach. They swung big for some of the middle round picks like they have in the past. So I support everything that they did. Really do. I mean, I'm just saying that because I'm on a Flyers podcast, but genuinely, like when some of these picks were made, I was very happy for them.
Well, let me ask. I think now that I've had some time to digest what they've done, it seemed like it was more like a restocking for depth and not so much reaching for that ever elusive high-end talent that maybe could match or come close to being what Michkov is. And to pass, and since that latter player is harder to obtain, I think that was a sense of frustration with Hellenius on the board, particularly in my mind. Boyum, get the higher level guys. The restocking ends up being like a player who's like a bottom 6 player. And I'm not sure where Berglund and Ruhonen are going to end up, but they're probably in that category. Chetlichenko could also be a bottom six player. He could be a third line center, maybe a second line center. We could talk a little about what he showed at the summer showcase, but that's, I think, the frustration. It's like they're kind of punting on the offseason in terms of trying to get that talent that pushes them along and moves this timeline along, especially in light of them, coming to contract terms with Travis Konechny and committing to what would seem to be a sooner timeline than maybe, the real patient approach.
I think they again, they're pretty transparent. So they said they think that next year's draft might be better. Well, this year's draft, but they said next year at the draft in Vegas. So they have, what do they have? 2 firsts and 2 seconds, I believe. So that might have been like, hey, you know what? It's not the worst decision in the world strategically to address a weaker draft as the depth draft, right? Like, let's address need. Let's not go for like the big. Now, I don't really agree with that personally. I think you always got to go big with at least one of your early picks, and they didn't really do that. They got good, safe, smart, clean players that you could say, and if you look all throughout the history of the NHL draft and the Stanley Cup championship teams that were built through the draft, that you're going to get like a Robin Regehr, like I'm dating myself, right? Or like who was like a late first round pick, who was a key guy for, Colorado and then Calgary. You know what I mean? But he wasn't a sexy
like
pick.
John Carlson was for the Capitals,
Yeah, so if the scouts assessed this draft as average to below average, and in a way I kind of agree with it because it was so heavy on defense that if you don't have a lot of elite centers, then maybe that hurts the entire or the collective depth or strength of a draft class. Then I wouldn't mind if they're like, let's go find a big, mean third line center, a guy that we could say, and again, dating myself, like a Joel Otto, right? Like a big guy, right? That or like a David Backes, although he was a first round pick, like a guy like that, is going to be a pain in the neck to play against, and that theme was pretty prevalent with this draft class, like heavy guys with size, guys with like a little bit of dynamism in them. So in that regard, I guess I'll agree with it, but we really have to, now the onus is on them. They have to swing big for next year because they can't do it in back-to-back years. If they start getting funky and leaving potential 80, 70-point defensemen or centers on the board for, let's say, Morgan Frost 2.0. I'm not saying Luchenko is going to be that, but there's similarities there. Yeah, 50, 60-point NHL players, fine. But I agree, you got rid of, you traded, or you got rid of Cutter Gauthier. We didn't consider Gauthier a low-ceiling kind of guy. We considered him to be Matvei Michkov's center. And it was going to be a great tandem and a franchise-caliber tandem. Is Luchenko that player now? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. He's definitely very skilled, but I agree. I agree that, there should have been at least one pick in the earlier rounds that I was like, wow. If you ask me, I think the Pautov pick, which is the later Russian, and what was the 6th round or the
Pautov, yeah.
Yeah, he is a guy that you're like, wow, dynamic, small-ish, but really dynamic, has so maybe, and there were plenty of players on the board. And then also trading back to, when they decided to trade back for the extra pick, I think they got one for next year, right? So when I think it was at the
they have 3 first rounders next year and 3 second rounders.
Yeah, so we'll I have faith in Briere and Jones when it comes to, they're honest guys. So I know that Flyers fans have every reason to be leery. We've heard how great the prospect pool has been back to the frickin' Hextall years.
Yep.
So, I understand that. And, would we feel a little bit differently if you got Hellenius, who was like I said in previous podcasts, and I even wrote it up, like he had the highest assist per game rate for a first year eligible in Finland since Barkov. And, so that means, I'm not saying it's a guarantee he's going to be a Barkov and hit 100 points, but the playmaking and the passing, maybe they like Luchenko's quickness, or they liked his, I think he's got a couple of inches on him, maybe, or an inch or two on him. I don't know, but, I guess we have to wait and see what they do next year, which kind of stinks because you got to wait and see. But then again, this all gets forgotten if Luchenko, like Barkey, goes bananas and has 100-point season. We're like, oh, of course they knew he's a go. There you go. There's Michkov center. So that's how sports fans think, and understandably so.
Well, that's just the nature of it, Chef.
Well, I wanted to ask, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but so if we're looking at next year too, and we know it's going to be a better stock draft, especially top heavy in the first 50 or so. So Flyers arguably they could have 6 picks under 45, right? Yeah. So you think that maybe if they're looking at it, they think they got a better chance of getting that center in 1 of 3 tries next year than they would have this year, and they take somebody that they think, okay, who we're looking down the road here, we're going to need a strong, maybe second-line center or third-line center, and he's a backup plan for maybe Morgan Frost. It doesn't work out. It fits their timeline. Maybe that's what they're thinking, and they know that they're not going to have to sell the farm to get that second that center now, and maybe it's just a better crop. I mean, what's your thinking about that?
It's a good question, and therein lies the rub, because if they do what they did last year and they freaking surprise the world and they're another 88, 90-point team, they're not going to get that franchise center. I don't care if they're drafting 16 or 17. And one of the themes that I heard, I watch every single pre-draft and post-draft press conference, every single one for every team. And almost every GM was like, we tried to trade up. Kyle Davidson we tried to trade up last year. We tried to trade up. We tried to. People, they were even Nashville, Trotz was like, oh, we tried. I think when Nashville drafted their kid, they were like, well, we could. The Devils were another one, saying with what's his name, the Salayev. They're like, so you don't want to be in that position. And it's a tough, I guess, like a full season of 90, 92-point Flyers hockey and a near playoff berth, or potentially making the first round. Is that worth missing out on a franchise center? Because as good as this draft is coming up, James Haggins, Frondell, Ryabkin, Misa, they're probably not going to be around at 16 or 17. You know what I mean? So we don't even know what to expect out of the Flyers. They were very inactive in the offseason. They extended Konechny. They're going back with the same group. What we have to trust that Urson is going to play. Remember, like they won't have Carter Hart for the first half this year. He was a big reason why they got off to that solid start. So if it all goes if it all goes to hell in a handbasket, then that's an easy sell to the fans. And they said, hey, listen, we haven't been active at the trade deadline. We haven't been active in the offseason. We stink now. We're selling off whatever we can. We committed to Konechny because he's been a good soldier. The fans like him. We need at least one name to kind of at least, put in, sell to the fan bases. Although Michkov, I think, is going to take care of a chunk of that this year. Mm-hmm. So I really do think that it's all going to depend on what happens. If I'm a Flyers fan, I hate to say this, like I'm rooting for a kind of a tank. I'm rooting for listen, last year was fun. Torch did got it. We know the group, if they're pressed and pushed and disciplined, they'll do well and respond to that type of coach, right? But at the same time, you got to compete with some of these teams on the rise in the conference who've been drafting nothing but top 5 and top 10 picks for, like, in some cases 10 years.
Yeah, Chef.
Quick little follow-up to that. So we're to piggyback the whole where they're going to finish at the end of the season. I also look around in their division and in the conference actually too, that other teams, like I don't expect the Devils to fall on their face like they did last year. I don't expect a couple other teams. A couple other teams made moves, and I feel they got better. You know, I mean, I could see the Flyers dropping to like 6 or 7 or 8 even at the end of the year because, one, based off of what you said with Carter Hart, I was going to bring that up to you anyway. Good call there. So now you got 2 backup goalies trying to prove if they're actually a starting goalie. So they could play all they want. They could play the same way as they did last year and still end up at like 79, 80, 85 points, if that, just based on goaltending alone. I mean, somebody once said, if you want to tank, just get an average goalie, you know, and if you're tanking without tanking, it's not, you know, so, I mean, is this a valid point? You think the Flyers could fall to 7 to 10 in there, maybe? And then with those draft capital that they have, those 6 top 2 pick, you know, for 5.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a situation where the fans must be in limbo because it's like, which way do we go? Because we have to admit, last year was fun. It was good to see them play like that. It was good to be in the mix for a playoff spot, but at the same time, you're like, all right, where exactly? Oh, and the inactivity in the last 2 off seasons and at the deadline in terms of buying or bringing strength in, like, hey, our power play's been terrible. Why not spend a couple of picks that we have to get a specialist that might help it? I mean, the power play's been abysmal, and you can make the excuse you can make a case that had the Flyers power play been just below average and not historically pathetic, and I'm sorry to insult the group, but I was out 2 years in a row. The worst power play
3 years in a row. Yeah.
Worst power play in franchise history. Maybe, all right, you trade a 2026 second-round pick and a 2025 third-round pick, and you get like like some type of defenseman or like anything that maybe the Flyers do make the playoffs in 2024. And so again, I guess they say trust the process. It's such an overused and hoary cliche, but you know what? Like, hey, in this case, I guess we really have no other choice but to trust the process because, you know, mediocrity has been this organization's MO for a while now. Like they've never been pathetically bad since what? Like, is it 2007? That weird year where everybody got hurt, and then the next year they go to the conference finals, and then 2 years after that they go to the cup. So, you know. And that was with a lot of homegrown kids, you know, the Carters and the Richards, etc. So I'm surprised that they've been this inactive, but they've said like we don't want to get into the rut. So to your point, Chef, like, yeah, everybody else, the only thing is like they've been worse or bad for much longer than the Flyers. Maybe not Montreal's case, but like Buffalo and, you know, New Jersey had that 1 year, but that's about it. Like, you know, they have to, they have no choice. Their fans are going to freaking burn the building down if they don't make the playoffs, especially in Buffalo and Ottawa. So, you know, then we get to the point where if the Flyers are doing what they did, let's just say Urson pulls out Carter Hart and Kolosov's deal Fedotov is like a revelation. Then it's like, all right, well, here we are again. Are you going to buy? Are you going to improve the club? Like, or we're just going to say we have all these picks and let's just go at it again and see what happens. I'm not going to lie. Like it would frustrate the heck out of me. I mean, it is frustrating me. I'm not even a Flyers fan. It's frustrating me. So, I guess to sound cliche again, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just, you know, let it ride.
Yeah. A couple of things, you know, it's just pointing back and looking back at last year, you know, the backbone of that was the Sealer Walker tandem, which of course they traded Walker away for the first round draft pick. And of course they ended up moving that pick to 25. And of course, goaltending as well. And that fell apart when Carter Hart had to leave the team for reasons that we all understand. So they're coming back with a lot more questions in goal. I don't know if Drysdale is going to be able to quite do what Walker was able to do yet. There are some questions about his ability to stay on the ice over the last couple of years. We hope that they are valid, and whether he necessarily is going to be a right partner for Sealer, or perhaps looking at it the other way around. So yeah, their defensive pairings are more of a question mark, and in goal. So and on the other hand, they're going to have Michkov, and there's another year together ingrained in playing the way that Tortorella wants them to play. Keith Jones is on the NHL Wraparound podcast. He was talking with Neil Smith and his host, and he was talking about what they're doing, because they just don't believe in tanking. They are trying to thread the needle and acquire talent and slowly build this team. And they don't want to sink into Ottawa and Buffalo territory in terms of having a losing culture. And that's why they decided that they're not going to tank, and they think they can do it with this thread the needle, if you will, approach. And because if they think once you become a perennial loser, like you're saying, the fans are ready to burn the building down. And in Philadelphia, we already have that with the Sixers, who have never even made a final yet. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that the fan base has every reason to be skeptical, because we went through this with Hextall. Like, the Flyers weren't bad, like historically bad. Like, yeah, guys like was it Sanheim, and then of course Nolan Patrick were high picks, but you also had a lot of mid to late first round guys in there. Konechny was a late first round. Well, Provorov was pretty high, but still he wasn't like a top 8. He wasn't a top 5 pick, right? But you look at Pittsburgh's and Washington's and Chicago's and LA's, like, they had a whole bunch of top 3, 4 picks. Whether they hit or not isn't even the point. It's the fact that they dedicated this, chunk of the franchise index to suffer for the sake of getting draft capital, and it's a proven formula. I mean, I'm not saying that this method, like, you look at the Boston Bruins, when have they, like, under Don Sweeney and before him Chiarelli, like, the Bruins weren't like historically bad. Like, they had, they got lucky with Sagan, but that was a trade. They were already good. They won the cup in 11. Kessel was a high pick. But, Bergeron was a 2nd-round pick. Marchand was a 3rd-round pick. Lucic wasn't a 1st-round pick. So maybe they're thinking like, hey, look, the Bruins did it, and they're still doing it. They're still doing it with 3rd and 4th, 5th-round overages. And the Bruins are still finding a way to be this powerhouse that's in contention every year. If that's the model they're following, it's hard to argue against that. Boston's a premier organization, and they've been to Stanley Cup finals. And whether they have these playoff losses or not isn't the point. Like, you want what Boston has. So in that regard, I'm okay with it, but we haven't seen it yet. You know what I mean? We got to see it first. And so they're sticking with the same guy. They're sticking with Farabee. They're sticking with Frost. They're sticking with Cam York. They're sticking with Urson. These guys were drafted kind of 4 or 5 years ago. So, you have to wonder, like, all right, is this going to work out? And, back to what Chef said, like, and even what you at the beginning, like, are they drafting kids that will make the change from mediocre and acceptable to we make everybody in the league fear us when they step into our building? And, we're like Boston, which is the case with the Bruins and some other teams as well. So I think maybe goaltending, maybe they think all the goalies that they've stockpiled, they could do kind of like the Rangers and the Islanders have done, where, hey, we have elite goaltending. We could have anybody playing on the ice. We'll still be able to compete and get to a conference final. But, they need some franchise type players, though. It's been a while.
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. Hey, why don't we talk about that World Junior Summer Showcase? Because there were a lot of Flyers prospects in that. You said they showed well. Maybe give me a summary about what your observations were.
Well, I mean, the Summer Showcase is good hockey. It's not, sometimes as a joke, I say it's a glorified scrimmage. It's good hockey. No national team wants to lose. In the case of Finland and Sweden, they travel to Plymouth from Europe without much of a training camp. basically coming in a little rusty, and they're playing for spots, right? Or they want to represent their country at the World Juniors, and this year it's in Ottawa, so it's going to be a big deal because it's in Canada, and they want to be a part of that. So you get like really intense moments, not the whole time. So when every team is represented, I think the Oilers were the only team that didn't have a single prospect there. But I watched, it was on USA Hockey TV. I bought the package. Pete Krupski, their play-by-play guy, did a great job pointing out who's drafted where, what prospects belong to whom. On top of that, he calls the play-by-play. It's not about storytelling. So I was able to, with his help and having it on video on demand, and I watched every game. It took me maybe like 4 to 5 hours to watch every game. So I wasn't, let's say, there. I'm a lot more comfortable assessing players using video and going back and rewinding and, slow motion, etc. So the Flyers prospects that played, now the bulk of the 8, well, actually it was really 7, because I don't think Bonk played in either of the games in Plymouth. Out of the 7 who played, 4 were Canadian, and the Canadian team didn't show up until later on in the tournament. So in the beginning, you had Powell on Team USA, who's trying out for a spot, and he was drafted this year in the 5th round. And then you had Rohonen, this year's 4th round pick. And then you had Berglund, this year's 2nd round pick. So all guys who are in their first year draft eligibility, which automatically mean, well, Powell's a 2nd year, the overager, but automatically means that, the federations could, in essence, not pick, let's say, Berglund or Rohonen as 2006 birth years, because they could just make the team next year. Whereas Powell, as an 05, is in his last year of eligibility. So, but, you're talking about 3 forwards. The Berglund had a prominent role with Sweden. He started out as a, like middle 6 guy, but he started getting top PK, top PP time. And he was big. I mean, he's always big, but he was mean, effective in the corners. And so I think that the narrative, and again, I watched this kid a ton in the J20, the narrative that he is this like checking guy with a limited ceiling, we got to hold off on that, because he has playmaking ability. He was the top scorer, or one of the top scorers on his junior team, and they deployed him the same way. But the big takeaway from him, the same thing with Rohonen and Powell, is how hard they work along the boards. There's skill. All these kids have skill. They're all going to be for their respective junior clubs this year. They're all, or college. They're going to be, big time players or dependable players who are going to be counted on to put up points. But the battle level in the late July in a tournament was pretty high. Rohonen was the same thing. Started out in like a middle 6 role, and then now he's getting bumped up. Now Hellenius was not there for Finland, so they had Kumpalainen, a Minnesota draft pick, as their consistent first line center. But Rohonen was shifting from wing to center throughout the tournament. Was on PP1, not all the time, but again, this is more, like I said, it's an evaluation. So it's not like they're going to have set lines every game. There was a lot of line matching, a lot of line shuffling, pairings were shuffled, etc. And if you go on my Substack, I mean, it's behind a paywall, but if you subscribe, I broke everything down by like how they were deployed. And every time it was kind of a pain in the neck, because I did all the line combinations, like changing them up again. And so, but Rohonen and Berglund, they fit the exact draft day description that I gave, that Flar gave, is 200-foot, tough, competitive skill game. We saw that throughout the entire tournament for them. The guy that really impressed me out of the 3 picks from this year was Powell. And the knock on him was his skating. And it was visible. I mean, you hate to knock a kid when he gets drafted, because it's like the happiest moment of his life, where you're like, hey, he's not a good skater. But I did not see a problem with his skating. I mean, he's got a really wide stride. I mean, it's a wide base and but he must have been working on it over the last couple of months, because he was like, I don't want to say explosive, but whether he was reacting in a timely manner or he was just getting that quick first step, anticipating, he was in the face of a lot of defensemen. So that was my big takeaway out of all the takeaways. But on top of that, he fought. And now listen, the thing about Powell is when he got drafted, he's got a great shot and he was one of the top scorers in the USHL. Okay, that's great. A lot of guys score in junior hockey. But then I saw him playing center. He was winning draws clean against Luchenko. And he was listed as a wing. But even the other thing I like was he was involved in some individual battles, like anger. You saw like legit anger. I mean, you saw that from Berglund and Ronan too, but it was way more pronounced with Powell. And I think it might have been Victor Eklund, who's a top prospect for this year's draft in the Sweden game, where they were going back at it. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was some slashing. There was some like blowing up each other in the freaking open ice. So like that wasn't Powell, in my opinion. I don't think that was Powell spotlighting in front of the scouts. Like, oh, I want to make an impression, so let me be physical, which is always the case sometimes in these showcases. I think that was legit him playing with a chip on his shoulder in general, and also wanting to be assertive and establish, draw like a line in the sand, so to speak. So, he had a couple of really good chances to score too. He's got a good shot. It didn't happen. So it wasn't like he was playing on the top, like with Hagens and playing with Musty or some of the bigger offensive types. But Pete Krupski, like I said, he could not stop talking about Powell. And I agree with him. I think he had, out of all the non-returnees, he might have had one of the better tournaments, just all areas of the game. Now, when Canada played, my big thing was Bjarnason. That was the guy I was going to be looking at, because for 2 years in a row, he's had his draft year, and then even last year, he's had issues in the late second half, getting beat from distance. And so, and I'm of the opinion that the other two goalies drafted after him, and then you also include Kolosov. So you have, well, not the other two goalies. I'm talking about Zavragin,
right?
Kolosov, and then Fedotov. If you're looking at the pipeline, that they were ahead of him. And so and I didn't think Bjarnason really, he was a high round pick. The Flyers took a chance on him. So I was really going to look at him. And Canada, their World Junior team this year, it was going to be between Bjarnason and Carter George, a guy that was drafted high this year. And so I felt like he had something to prove. Barkey's going to make the team. He's just a great player. Barkey's not the kind of guy who's going to like dominate shifts, and he's going to be a standalone guy that, oh my God, he's the main driver of everything, but he just does everything right. If there's a hit that has to be delivered, he'll do it. If there's a shot that has to get blocked, he'll do it. If there's a skill play or a momentum shift that needs to happen, he'll do it. And so you saw that again in his games in Plymouth. And Luchenko, PK1, PP1. He scored a goal off a great feed from Berkeley Catton on the power play. But I liked also the physicality from both of those players, Luchenko and Barkey. I don't know if Barkey's going to make it. I don't know about Luchenko. That's going to be an iffy one, not because of the way he played, but they have Jaeger and they have Easton Cowan might be there. Callum Ritchie. Right. They might be the 05 guys a longer look and maybe dedicate the roster to more 05 guys in the 2006 birthday, kids who were just drafted last year. So if Luchenko makes it, I could see it as a fourth line penalty killing type. But what we saw in Plymouth and like we saw with Guelph, he's a very good penalty killer, good on faceoff. So and the power plays, a power play specialist. The power play was a problem for Canada last year at the World Juniors, and also that whole unit, their first unit that they used in Sweden, they've moved on. Celebrini's moved on. Danielson has moved on. Owen Beck, they've all graduated, or So I think that if Team Canada wants a power play specialist, it's going to be between, like, Riley Height is another guy that I forgot to mention. He's an 05. But I think Barkey's definitely going to make it. He'll be on the line with Easton Cowan and, probably second or third line. But back to Bjarnason. So he came in I'm going to talk about the USA game because that was the more important one. So in the first period, Team USA dominated, but Ravensburgen was in net, a kid who's eligible for this year's draft. The Flyers are probably going to draft him after seeing how well he played in that tournament. And he was phenomenal. And it was a close game, but, he stopped I think 17 or 15 out of 17 shots. Now Bjarnason comes in, and again, I'm looking at him, and this guy made, I would say, at least 7 legit 10-bell saves in a very short period of time, all lower half, not from distance. So we really see him get tested from distance, like a snipe attempt from a circle or the hash. But like Cole Eiserman, the sniper for Team USA, was drafted by the Islanders, must have had 8-9 shots against him, attempts at least. And he was quick, Bjarnason. He was clean, confident with his rebound control. He was steering pucks with his blocker, with his stick. The way he was covering and sealing the upper half. So this is a really good sign for him, for Flyers fans who might have been down on him after another, lackluster WHL postseason, etc. So it's going to be, I think, between him and Carter George, who's going to start for Canada at the actual tournament itself. But really, across the board, all 7. Now, the other guy I didn't talk about was Southern. He played, I think, in the Finland game, but didn't play in a game against Team USA. I'm pretty sure about that. And he was really physical. He was, again, this might have been a situation where he wants to kind of step up, but he might be a little redundant, or he might be excess. I don't know if he's going to make the team as a right shot D, but I could be mistaken because he's got size. He can move. He's got a pretty good shot. And he is like a quintessential Hockey Canada type of defenseman in the bottom pairing. But the physical aspect is going to be key for Canada because Team USA is going to have a pretty heavy lineup. And I believe they're in the same group this year. So, whether they play in, New Year's Eve, or you're going to want to have to be able to match Team USA's physicality. And that might make it easier to add a guy like Southern as a 7th defenseman.
Yeah. He would seem to be, somebody who's still in there. Probably not a favorite, but he's got an opportunity.
Yeah. I think Bonk and Barkey and Bjarnason are locks, right? Bjarnason is either going to be the backup or the starter. Bonk is definitely a lock, and Barkey is definitely a lock. I really do think Powell played himself onto the team. And I think with Berglund, the situation, Sweden lost Osland and Biested to graduation, right? They're 04, so they aged out. And they're both really good two-way, 200-foot types. They're penalty killers, etc. So that might, incline Team Sweden to give Berglund a shot, even as a fourth-line center, but also mostly for his face-offs and penalty killing. Because I would say in Plymouth, he was one of their better defensive forwards. Finland with Rohanen, the Finland double overages, the guys from the 05 year group were really, really good at that tournament, and they got a couple more who didn't play. So it might be a case of just wait till next year. But again, you got to match with these teams physically, and he can do that. And he plays a North American game. They'll be on a North American sheet, and he could play wing or center. But I would say that it's going to be really hard for Team USA to say no to Powell. I mean, he could do it all. Whether you want him on the power play, you want him as a checker. So, and again, we'll have to wait and see how these kids play during the league portion up until the camp, I guess, begins in whatever it is, mid-December, late December. But yeah, Flyers prospects really they represented the organization well, I thought.
Good. That's great to hear. Why don't we pick up some names, and we're going to pick up some of these guys along the way and take a look at the Flyers top prospects. These are just some names from different articles I kind of put together. Let's start with Egor Zavragin, the goaltender. A lot of people were surprised he was taken. Flyers had taken Bjarnason in the next round. I think it was a third rounder. Yeah. They take this guy, and he has spectacular numbers. So he's going to be in the
he should be in the KHL this year.
KHL this year, yeah. He's going to be in Sochi. Because
Yeah.
I think Ska has St. Petersburg has his rights, and
I think he was the VHL Rookie of the Year, or he won some award in the VHL this year. He wasn't a full-time guy, but I've said about him on previous podcasts that Zavragin was considered by many to be one of the best Russian goalie prospects that the Federation had developed. And I wouldn't go as far as to call him like Askarov, who everybody loved, and obviously being a first-round pick, but in 2021 to 20 to Nashville. But the Zavragin, and I've said this again, if Russia was allowed to play in any of these tournaments, the U18, U20 level, he's their goalie. He's their number one. And there's a bunch of Russian goalies are a thing now, not just in the NHL, but teams are reactionary drafting too, and they're all grabbing Russian goalies because they're just simply, listen, you look at the top 15 goalies in expected goals and your save percentage, whichever you use, and they're mostly European, and there's a lot of Russians there.
Yeah.
Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Sorokin, like the list goes on and on. So I think teams are like, well, why not just dip into that talent pool? But I think out of the 04, 05, 06 year groups, Zavragin is the best out of that group. And so I thought that I had him in the second round. I had him as a first round pick in my preseason poll back in the summer of 2022. So I'm definitely high on him. The question is, now he's going to go to the KHL. Do we make a big deal out of his stats? Well, listen, Russian goalie stats are always going to be lower than in North America. It's a lower scoring league at every level. The VHL, MHL, KHL, they don't score nearly as much as they do in the, let's say, Canadian Junior or, even the USHL. So he's going to put up numbers that to the average NHL fan, like, oh, he has a goals against average of 2.28 and a save percentage is 910. Yeah, it's probably like 79th in the league though in Russia. So you have to be careful with that. But like Shesterkin or the other Russian goalies, they don't just show up, 19, 20, 21 years old and steal the show. It's going to take them a while to get here. I don't know when his contract is up in the KHL, but listen, he is part of what is I consider to be one of the best goaltending pipelines in the league. And you got to throw Ursin in that mix too, because he's not that old. He's like, I think 25.
Right.
So from Ursin, Fedotov is obviously on the older side. He's 27, but all these guys are under 30. Kolasov is obviously a guy that we've all been high on, and we just got to see him play.
We were crossing our fingers there.
Yeah. And so, I think he deserved to be a full-time guy, whether it be in the Russian Junior League, even in the VHL. The other goalie on his team was like 40 years old in the second division. He was an older guy, but he might have served as a mentor to Zavragin. So, I would say definitely has number one upside without a doubt. It's just a matter of, like Michkov, we just got to track the KHL progress. The Flyers have proven they could work around the KHL situation, the contract situation. So I just wish we could see this kid play in international tournaments, because he'd be their number one at the U18 or now the U20 level.
Yeah, not having Russia in the tournament has been frustrating, especially recently with the Flyers' activity. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We mentioned Jack Berglund. It seems like he's this big guy who it's disputed how much offensive talent he has. What's not disputed is that he brings size, a lot of battle. He's already 6'3", 210 at his age. So is he like a really high floor guy? Would you say that?
I mean, his playmaking is really good. Färjestad was a playoff caliber team in the J20 National, the Swedish Junior League. And they used him as their top line center. They used him as their PP1, and they used him as their PK1. So they had a couple other guys in that team, but the fact that he was one of the top scorers on the team, he faced the top matchups every night. He also had big moments at the U18. He played for the U18 national team, had a really, probably one of the best players overall at the U18 Five Nations tournament in Plymouth in February. He wasn't as, I think he got hurt. Actually, he had like a skate cut injury from the bench in like that February tournament. But so I agree with the pick. Second round, 51st overall might seem high for a lot of people, but I had him in that range. I think I had 54th overall. So, the maturity, he should be, I don't know what his deal is in terms of, coming to North, all these Swedish kids now coming to North America. We haven't really seen that often. Now they're playing in the CHL, which wasn't really always the case. But I think he's going to be an SHL kid this year. And, you're going to see how well he does against men. But I think he'll hold his own. He's definitely a smart kid. He's got the IQ. He's got the compete. He's got the hands. Not a great skater. All right. I mean, like I said, the skating thing is so overblown. But I would consider him at this point a specialist on the defensive side with the potential for, like, it's not like we've seen defensive checking types who there's no hope for them to put up points. I don't think that's the case with Berglund. Okay,
so his hockey IQ is a little higher than.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's a pass first guy. He's got good vision. Yeah, he senses, anticipates well. Like, he just doesn't have like the agility and the first step quickness to really, manipulate time and space. And you'll probably see him at tournaments, make more noise in the corners and in front of the net. Well, at least at the U20 level. But once he turns 19, 20 himself, but again, we'll see how he does with Firestone this year. He's not going to play a whole lot, but they're a pretty good team. They should be a good team this year. I think they're getting the kid Solberg, too, the defenseman. That was a first-round pick. So, some might see he was drafted a little bit too high, but I had him right there. And Central Scouting was high on him, too.
Yeah, 51st overall didn't seem like too much of a reach. We mentioned Carson Bjarnason is coming off a really good showing. Yeah. So I would probably rate, like you do, Zafragan higher. But, with goaltenders and the path that they take being so long, I mean, who knows what it's going to look like in a couple of years when these guys are ready to get a shot, in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, with goalies, I think you have to look for, much like the scouts do, and the development staff and the coaches do, where these kids watch so much film. They're always watching film. They are told, it's like, they know full well, whether they see it on social media or they see it in film sessions, they know exactly what they're doing wrong and what they need to work on. It's not like he's got to work on his glove hand. Well, the analytics types, like we all have that data now. We know exactly where a goalie's getting beaten. Is he doing what's necessary to improve that? Obviously, I would like to think that any goalie at this age is going to continue to work on improving it. So I don't know if you guys remember, but Askarov was killed by Ray Ferraro on TSN at the World Juniors because he was getting beat by glove hand snipes. And it's like, all right, like these are elite shooters as far as age group. Right. Like he's might be getting beat by these snipes, and they really were snipes, but he's stopping pretty much everything else. Like, oh, well, look at his save percentage. I mean, 4 years later, he's one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie prospect, not in the NHL. And he's been fantastic for Milwaukee in the AHL. It's just a matter of, getting him into Nashville. They can't because Saros is blocking him. So, again, we're all going to critique these kids, but I like the fact that the Flyers have at least 3 guys that, and you want to throw in, Fedotov, and you want to throw in Urson because they're on the older side. That makes it 5 guys who, in theory, because goalies could be solid and number ones until their late 30s. All these guys, I mean, there's going to be some that fall off, but I think they position themselves to have a good 1-2 punch out of this group. Law of averages especially will say that. Bjarnason, he's going to get a lot of attention because of how high he was drafted. If he was maybe a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick, I don't think we'd be like, oh, it's fine, but he was a high 2nd-round pick, so people are going to focus on what he does and doesn't do well. But, I think he's going to be aged out of the CHL. So now if you have, let's say, Fedotov as the backup to Urson, and then you have, well, Kolosov, I mean, is he going back to the KHL? I know he said he didn't like Lehigh Valley or something like that.
Dynamo Minsk is going to have their training camp soon. If he's not there, you have to assume, look, he's under contract and then he'll be coming here. But if he's there and they want to loan him and want to work something out, I don't know how flexible the Flyers will be. It's a little bit of a soap opera right now. We're kind of waiting on pins and needles with that.
I mean, Bjarnason, he's not a late. I thought he was a late 04. He's not. He's an 05. So he has to play in junior this year. But he could join Lehigh Valley late, which will be, I think, very telling. But then next year, it's going to be, technically he could play in junior if that's what they want from him. But it all depends on what the situation in Lehigh Valley is. Or does he go to Reading?
Well,
it all depends on.
Yeah, they're done with Peterson, so they everything really revolves around Kolosov in terms of what the Flyers' actual plan is. Where it goes from there, though, depending on what Kolosov decides, is who knows? But yeah, and that'll determine the fate. I don't think they would want Bjarnason necessarily to be in Reading. They might prefer that,
goalies know it's not a bad thing. I think goalies, when they go to the ECHL, it's definitely like development centric, and not that it's not for the forwards, but there's like a stigma when it comes to forwards and defensemen. Yeah. Whereas with goalies, hey, you got to go to the AHL because there's only 2 spots available in the A. And, I agree. I think that the intent is going to be see what we got with Fedotov for a full season, the Kolosov situation, and then because we know Zavrag is going to be in Russia for at least another year. So,
oh yeah, probably another couple years. So, yeah. Chef.
All right, so you touched on Barkey earlier. I love the kid. I love the progress he made. Is it sustainable if he repeats himself this year in London? I think he's still going to do probably one more year at London at least, right? And then he's going to go. Maybe he graduates or whatever. But
he has to. Yeah, he has to.
Yeah. So depending upon, but is he? If he has another year like he did last year, I mean, is that a stop and like, hey, look at me moment for the team? Because I know a lot of people said you're getting excited about a guy who scored a lot of goals in junior. We've been down this road before. I mean, we had Big Rat on the team before, so he scored a lot of goals and he turned into a dud when he got to the NHL and the Phantoms. So, what's a realistic opportunity outlook for Barkey, I should say?
Well, he should have a great OHL season. He's playing for a great team. They're going to want to go back to the Memorial Cup. Easton Cowan and he have been line mates. Whether Jacob Julian was their center this year. Before that, I think it was Winterton. Like, they're going to produce. So they're going to put up big numbers. You'll see them at the World Juniors. All those boxes will be checked. The question that I have about Barkey isn't about size. It isn't about his talent or his effort level, which is unquestionable. It's where do they see him playing positionally? Is he a center or is he a wing? If he's a wing, he's got a lot of competition. So what we have to prepare for is that as gaudy as his stats are going to be, the 100-point season, draft +1, probably another one, draft +2, you got Tuamala, who had a great year in Lehigh Valley. You got Bump, who's one of my favorites, tearing it up in college, and he's a beast. You got, of course, Mitchkov. The kid Sulku, there's like Forster. I mean, go down the list. Like, they have firepower on the wings and kids who are like 23 or younger. So, the concern should be not that he was a high pick though. I mean, he was like a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Mhm.
So it's not like if he fails to make the team, you're like, oh, what a disappointment. I mean, but at the same time, Barkey's the kind of guy who's going to be a coach's dream, and he has the intangibles. So let's say if a Tuamala or a Bump or a Solku or even a Mitchkov, Desnoyers, if those guys, whether center or wing, I think they'll always find a place in the lineup for him because he's that kind of a player. Morgan Frost put up really big numbers in junior, 100-point seasons, and he's a pretty good, middle six, if you want to call it that. NHL center who could hit 40, 50 points. He had good chemistry this year with his line mates. I think when he was playing with Tippett, they looked pretty good. Maybe it was the OHL connection. I don't know, but we all like when our prospects score big in junior. But I think, if LaPerriere is still the coach in Lehigh Valley, I think he's going to really like Barkey. He's going to like a lot of the kids, but he's going to really like Barkey because, I mean, even his name, Barkey, like he's a scrappy, kind of a dog on a bone player who just has skill. And if he doesn't have to score, he doesn't have to use his skill to score. Like I said, he does whatever the coaching staff asks him to do.
That's awesome. So now let's talk about Massimo Rizzo because he was someone that they acquired late last season, But here's the thing. I don't know if I'm sold on him. I know a lot of people are like, oh, let's give him a shot. But I look at Joel Farabee, he's just like a year and a half older maybe, and where he's at in his age versus his career versus Rizzo. And I'm a little apprehensive because I know he tore it up last season in college and all, but I mean, is he going to does he have the potential, I guess, to develop into an NHL regular, or as Isaiah likes to say, is he a tweener?
He's a tweener. He was, in my opinion, he was a depth add, right? They lost Gauthier. The center position, they might have been targeting it all along at the draft, let's say throughout the 2023-24 season. Carolina is loaded at every freaking position in their pipeline. And so it made sense. I mean, he was a low round pick. I think it was like a 6th or a 7th round pick. So it made sense for him to maybe see greener pastures and say, I want to go to an organization that could have the opportunity to maybe compete. So like, you have Owen McLaughlin, who's a playmaking center, but he wasn't as further along as Rizzo. And Rizzo played for a really good program, a championship winning program. So you have all those benchmarks checked. But to think that because he put up big numbers in college, that he's going to come right in and, set the world on fire. I mean, Lashinsky was a guy who produced in college. Cooper Marody produced in college. So, I mean, it could be a career minor league situation. They also brought in the European guy, Abels. So, where does Rizzo fit in? Where's he going to play in terms of if it is Lehigh Valley, what's his deployment going to be? Is he going to be a top 6 guy automatically because he was a point a game guy or whatever was in college? I don't think so. He's going to have to earn it. But he was free chicken, let's say McLaughlin and McPherson start to regress and, Abels gets homesick and he wants to go back and all right, I think a lot of this has to do with having options to maintain competitiveness at the minor league level. I don't think the intent is to turn him into a 3C in Philadelphia. It would be great if he does, but for now, it's all about depth, replacing Gauthier in the depth chart because like Gauthier, he was a college guy. Like Gauthier, he was a productive college guy, albeit 3-4 years older. But he's a skill guy. He could run a power play. He's got a really good vision. He's a good seam passer. So maybe they look at the situation. He's got a pretty good shot too. So like McLaughlin's more of like a pass first guy. They're trying to get him to shoot more. If they want to create a culture where the Lehigh Valley power play is like, hey, we have a culture down here where our power play actually works, unlike the parent club. I think Rizzo's added value in that regard, but
yeah. Oh, well, also too, I think what people forget is that you have to have a minor league team to develop talent because and you're going to have to field the minor league team. Not everybody's going to make it there, and there are career AHLers that over the years in Flyers history that like won people's hearts. It's not like it could be the Neil Little of this generation. He gets a shot once or twice, or that's it. But people often forget. Yeah, you still got to field the the AHL team, because that's where you're developing all the other guys that come up anyway. So I guess Isaiah next.
Yeah, what we mentioned Alexei Kolosov. That is a soap opera. It should be worth watching. Another really good player, Emil Andre, looked very promising coming out of camp. Looked like a guy who needed some AHL time, and then as the year went on, it showed that he does have need some time to acclimate to the NHL or to the pro game, North American game in general. But they're still high on him as maybe a bottom pair, or maybe like a 4, 5, 6 kind of player that offers some offense. How do you size him up?
Well, I mean, I liked him in his draft year. I had him as a pretty high pick. I think I had him as a late first rounder. He went in the second, and he played for a pretty big program, HV71. They got relegated. Then they made it back. So when they were relegated in the old Svenskin, he was able to kind of he was given a pretty long leash, and he was always a guy that the HV71 organization viewed him as the future, not necessarily as a franchise type. They know that these guys are going to go to the NHL, or at least go to North America. But with Team Sweden, the U18 program, I mean, he's the number 1 defenseman, number 2 maybe, running the power play. He's a short defenseman though. He's not tall, and he's a little I wouldn't say stocky. He's like got a low center of gravity. He's more thick. I mean, he's physical. He could hit. He's just not the quickest for a puck mover. I mean, he's more of a puck mover than a puck rusher. He's got a really good shot, and so his name was mentioned by Briere when he was asked, why didn't you draft Boyum? And they said Cam York. We all knew Cam York was a power play quarterback with the NTDP in Michigan. He said Drysdale. We all knew Drysdale was a power play quarterback with Team Canada and Erie. And he said Andrea. And so, but it seems like the Flyers, they have 5 or 6 guys, defensemen, all in the same spot in terms of the 6 or the 7. So, Zamula, Yinning, if you want to throw the kid from Northeastern that they, I forgot his
Hunter
name.
McDonald.
Hunter McDonald. And then Andrea, because we all know that, I think they brought back Eric Johnson, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So he'll be there. They have Sanheim. They'll have York. They have Drysdale. So
Kristalainen. Yeah,
of course him. Yeah, so there's really not a lot of room. And Andre is going to be, I think, 24 years old.
He's 22 now.
Oh, yeah, he's a 2002. Okay, so yeah, he's a 2002. So he'll be 23 by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So Yinning is a 99. He's going to be freaking 26. So you have to wonder, is this just insurance? If you're going to say we didn't draft Boyum because of Emil Andre, well, you got to show us something. You got to play him more than – so we saw that rotation last year, right? Even during the middle of the if you want to call it a stretch run, that the Flyers were rotating guys out, were giving cups of coffee here and there. And Andre is ready. I mean, he's got very little to prove in Lehigh Valley. So there's only really one step left. And then you have Helga Grands down there too. By the way, they used to be partners on the Swedish national team. So, There's a lot of bodies. But Andrea rates closer or higher on the skill side. So in that case, you have to rank him high upside wise. But, we don't know what he's going to really do in the trenches against 6'3", 6'4", elite NHL scoring forwards and over, consistent period of time. We got to see it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, why you mentioned that, I was slip a name that wasn't really on our list because you mentioned Hunter McDonald. And I only do that because the Flyers are really high on this player.
Yeah.
He's always on the lips of both Briere and especially Keith Jones. I think they feel like he's a really solid, high floor player who's going to make the league in some capacity. If obviously not a star, but he could be a hard minute kind of defensive defenseman.
Yeah, absolutely. Net front, crease clearer, we're seeing a lot of these guys now, not a lot, but like St. Louis with like Matt Kessel and Tyler Tucker. And like, they're letting these specialists, these late round limited, you want to call them stay at home, you want to call them defensive defensemen. You don't win a playoff series if you don't have at least one guy who's willing to make the opposition pay for going down low. You look at what the Rangers get out of Trouba. For all his faults, he's still an intimidating presence. So, although I don't think McDonald is a feared open ice hitter just yet, he, from the dots down, he definitely makes his presence felt. Even if he's just shoving a guy, he's shoving him pretty hard into the boards and separating the guy from the puck, which I think is more important than just simply hitting a guy for the, to send a message. So a little surprised. I'm a Northeastern guy, so I'm obviously happy for him, but a little surprised the Flyers were very quick to sign him and get him down to Lehigh Valley. So and like you said, he's mentioned, like, just like Andre, if you're on the tip of the tongue of the GM, you're clearly doing something right. And on top of that, it's not like Briere or Jones is going down there with a notepad and taking notes and be like, oh, McDonald, like, this is feedback from the staff, whether it be Lehigh Valley staff or the player development staff. And this is how it goes in hockey. It's just like any other line of work, where if you're a manager, you know who your go-to guys are and who you guys have promised. I can't count on this guy this weekend. He's going to ruin things. I want my go-to guy. It's the same thing in the minor league, same thing at the ECHL. So I think they all view as McDonald like, you know what? He's probably a good kid. He's receptive. He's coachable. And he has the ability to play well defensively, smart, clean, stays within himself. I wouldn't say he's completely limited skating and first pass wise. He's actually got pretty clean. If you look at like different sequences, you'll see a sequence where he'll hit a guy separated from the puck, right? Or hit a guy and stick lift him at the same time, steal the puck, make a quick pivot, and then bam, headman pass, and the puck's out of the zone. So that entails a lot of thinking and playing at the same time. And he's and that's IQ. That's hockey IQ. So, discipline wise, he probably has to, I think he was hurt last year too, if I recall correctly.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, he is a guy that you have to add him to that list. I think I mentioned him, like he's in that bottom grouping. Mark Stoll is gone. You say Johnson replaced him. These older guys, they're going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. There's just no way the whole defense corps is going to play 75 games plus. So, it wouldn't be shocked to see McDonald get a call up, but it's probably going to be well-deserved.
Especially with the way Torts plays.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
with the shot blocks. Yeah, there'll be. I think they ought to have an over/under for broken bones among the defensemen.
Yeah,
but I think that what you described, that sequence you talked about McDonald, is exactly what Torts wants for his more defensive-oriented defenseman. It was one of the complaints he had initially with Ristolainen, is that he would hit guys and all that, but he wasn't shutting down the play. He wasn't going through that sequence, would hit the guy, lift the stick, and the puck is already out of the zone.
Yeah.
And that's something Ristolainen had to work on, even though he's got a much bigger toolbox than somebody like Hunter McDonald. He wasn't doing that fundamental thing that Torts wants out of his defenseman. It sounds like McDonald just kind of playing within himself, doing exactly that. So
yeah. I mean, and then Yinning is another guy too. Like, I mean, he was always known as a physical guy, but you know, when you get re-signed, like at some point you got to say it's not just because we drafted him and we like him. Oh, he's so friendly in the hallway when I see him. No, it's because they are meeting expectation, in some cases exceeding it. So the Flyers need to have, listen, they have the puck movers. They have Drysdale, they have York, they have Andre, they have Bonk. Like, you know, if you just go year by year down the line, if you build that depth chart, you need the, you know, like, because Ronnie Added, for example, right? He's a big
just going to mention him.
With a big shot. He could be on the power play. He's a physical presence, but we don't know, again, at some point, you know, when they're no longer waiver exempt, there might be a team that coveted him in his draft year. You can't protect him. He's gone. So you need those options. And although, you know, McDonald, I'm not going to say he's going to be a guy that fills in on the power play. It's you need to have a go-to pairing to do the dirty work, late close, late PK, defensive zone draw, late in period. And I think he's that kind of guy. Yeah,
there's no doubt that is a player that the Flyers want for that kind of, you know, safety valve, or, you know, to keep the coach in his comfort zone, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mention one other guy. Tuamala really showed well in the first half, kind of breaking through, and then ran into a brick wall the second half of the season. This is a pretty important year for him to kind of even out the distribution of his production.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the thing with him was always his frame. We knew he could skate. We knew he could shoot. We knew that he liked to play physical. He was an aggressive forechecker, not just a sniper. The issue with him was always like, when's he going to pack on muscle? He's a wiry kid. So the fact that he was able to even have a good half of an AHL season and deal with the physicality and play, not that he didn't play against physicality in the Finnish league, because he played in the Mestis. The Mestis is second division, so it's almost like a AHL level in terms of age and size and physical maturity of the opposition. So I think that the scoring was great. You know what I mean? And listen, in Finland and Europe, they don't play, you know, 65, 70 game schedules. So it's just like a college kid where they do hit that wall. So I'm going to assume that in building up his endurance, well, I didn't watch enough of Lehigh Valley to attribute the dip in, like, let's say, effort, bad luck. Was he, you know, let's say, was he predictable? I couldn't tell you that. But when you come to North America and in your first year, you basically catch on fire right off the bat, and you put the AHL on notice, not just the staff and the coaching, the coaches and the development types. It's a good sign for Tuamala. Is it possible that he has a letdown, even though it's the AHL? Yeah, of course. But you know, he's got a big time shot, and he's another guy that, you're going to have Mitchkov, you have Forster. These guys could shoot. They're snipers. You got Bump. We mentioned all those names. But Tuamala has one thing on his resume that a lot of guys don't, and that is he proved himself in the AHL, even if it was just for, let's say, a half or the 2/3 of a season. Not you. Let's be honest. You rarely see the European kids come right into the NHL, the AHL, under 22 or 23 years old, and right off the bat, they're freaking lighting it up. And he was, I think, among the top rookie scorers all year. So you hope you don't get I guess, the proverbial sophomore jinx, at least in terms of the AHL. But, you know, I mean, he doesn't just play. I like the fact that he plays like a North American style.
Yeah. So it's not like he's only 21. It's not the end of the world, but hopefully he makes a good showing. But let's jump to Jetlachenko here. I mean, I know we briefly touched on him. He had a good showing, but obviously, I mean, from what, you know, I guess if you trust Briere and you trust these guys to find good talent, I mean, I think I don't know what you think, but I'm leaning towards trusting them because I think they're going to shoot big next draft. But with him, what other things can you do to kind of like calm the masses here of not of having like envy from not picking the flashier names that were there ahead of him?
Well, he's a multi. There's a couple of things. The first thing was that he was Guelph's best. So like, it's not like he was a checking center on a loaded team, and there's maybe we saw a little bit of, let's say, a window of his production in like a spurt. Like, oh, he's a second line center on a good team, and like he was one of the best centers in the OHL from beginning to end for a team that was not very deep. And he was one of the best power play specialists in the OHL as a first year eligible. He had a ton of power play assists. He was really good at the international level. He was, I think, a fairly high OHL priority pick. So he's always had the reputation and he's lived up to it. What happened to him? How did he end up as a middle of a first round pick? And the upper half, how that happened compared to where what we viewed him as, let's say, in July of 2023. I think I just said it. Like, he went out and every day you got the same effort from him. You never saw him take a shift off. You never saw him be like, I'm just going to rely on my skill, because he also does more than just play make or create plays. And, he's a good penalty killer. He's good on faceoffs. He could be physical. He's added muscle. He could, he gets involved in battles. And he's a really good skater. Open ice agility, mohawks, peeling away, just creating time and space, whatever terms people use. He's
Steve,
a low.
Is he good on the boards and like that scrappiness that you're looking for, as some people have alluded to? I mean, he gets really high marks on working the boards, and I think that's very coveted when you're talking to the coaching staff of this team. Yeah, I think that's where they lacked. Farabee was pretty good for most of the first half of the season until they all took a tank. But I mean, is that that's why he can endear himself to, like, maybe the coaching staff at both the AHL level and NHL level when he gets around, that if he continues to keep this play even like he does.
Yeah, and the thing is, he makes plays off the boards too. So it's not like his intent in battling along the boards is to just free the puck and give it to somebody else. He knows he's the top dog on the ice as the center. So when he wins that battle, this is where the IQ comes into play. Where, I mean, I don't even know what the hockey term is, but like, it's like the walls collapsing around you, right? Like, you have the puck and there's an opponent to the left of you, there's an opponent to the right of you, and there's an opponent probably behind you or close by at like spying. And you really don't have a whole lot of room to do anything, much of anything, except what do we always see players do? Give it to somebody else, right? Make the safe play. He's the kind of guy that can make a play from the wall. Berglund's the same way. Rohonen, I'm talking about just centers in general in the organization. Rohonen is a guy that will chip it further down low, and he's so big and tough and strong and thick that he knows he's just going to outwork you. And eventually you'll get tired and back off, and that allows him or affords him the time and space, whereas Luchenko doesn't really need that. He does have 360-degree vision. So that's, I think, part of the lure that the Flyers, that Luchenko had when the Flyers were watching him. And they said from the very beginning in the season, they fell in love with him, and he lived up to expectations every time they went out to view him. So, but at the same time, it's the OHL, it's junior hockey. Balky scores 100 points. Radcliffe was a 50-goal scorer. Simon LeBerge was a big freaking scorer. I mean, Desnoyers, Avon, fine. But you want to see, and in terms of being a first-round pick, listen, we saw what the German Rubtsovs, and we saw the Morans, and Like, you're Nolan Patrick. You're a fly first-round pick. Everybody's going to be watching what you do. And so in the case of Morgan Frost, he wasn't a high one, but it's turned out okay for a late first-round pick. That's why, in a way, I'm not concerned or worried about Mitch Korv, but you got to give the kid an adjustment period. So if he's not scoring a goal a game in the first couple of weeks, you gotta temper. But again, this is how it works, and it's a big boy atmosphere. It's not an easy way to make a living, and so I think that Luchenko knows. These kids all have social media. I don't care what they say. I don't follow social media. BS. You want to know what people are saying about you. So he probably saw that there were some naysayers and I can't. And I was one of them. I said I don't like what the Flyers did there. How they had a chance to get 2 impact players. They traded down from one, and then they traded the other one altogether for next year. We have to wait until next year. Really. History 4 or 5 years down the road to really see how it turns out. But from what I've seen from Luchenko, I had him as a late first-round pick. What he did in Plymouth, it's just a little sample. But, he's got to live up to expectations.
Yep, that one we'll definitely be watching. Let's talk about Oliver Bumper Bonk, as he has become known in London of the OHL. I don't know if a lot of those goals he's getting in the OHL in the bumper spot on the power play are going to translate to the NHL. But what's realistic for Flyer fans to expect when this guy settles in and becomes the player that we think he can be?
I mean, I think his IQ is really high. He's a really smart defender. He comes from an NHL family. His dad was a really good defensive, 200-foot forward, two-way forward. So, and for a really good team. And so I think that there's a similar, I don't know if you guys remember those Ottawa teams in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
They had freaking Hossa, they had Havlat, they had Alfredson, Spezza. They had a ton of skill. And that you needed a guy like, Radek Bonk to be the not the shutdown guy, I guess, per se, but he knew his role and he was able to score on top of that. So I think that requires a level of selflessness. I'm sorry. And his father was a high pick, like a top 3 or 4 pick. And it was 94, 95. So I think that I'm going to assume he taught his son, he mentored him and said, hey, listen, you have to play a team game. It's not about you and your stats and looking flashy. And that's been Bonk's MO. I mean, London is as close to an NHL team as you'll find at the CHL level. Dale Hunter, his staff, listen, they don't shut up telling us about it. That's all we hear about. London, this, London, that. Shut up already with London.
Yeah.
If you're an OHL fan of another team, you want to kick in your freaking screen right now if you hear me say this, but it's just the reality that London is like the Alabama or Duke basketball, Alabama football, that is just always producing, Ohio State, whatever, producing the first round picks, the top talent, and it translates. It always translates. It rarely does it not translate. So I think that Bonk could have very easily been to let's say to Sam Dickinson, who was a top pick last year as a defenseman. Could easily be like, hey, I don't care that I was already drafted. I'm the senior guy here. I'm the veteran. I want to be the main guy. And he does whatever is asked of him, just like Barkey. To tell a defenseman, you're going to be in the bumper position while we put the younger guy at the point. I mean, a lot of kids would have a problem with that. Maybe they might not say it publicly or question the coach's decision, but beyond all that, and I've talked about Bonk for a while now, he's just a really good two-way defenseman. I don't care whether he scores 20 points, 25 points. I don't care that he was a first-round pick. None of that really matters to me. He is an effective two-way defenseman with great IQ, quick hands. He plays a team-first game. He could be physical. You could match him up against the top line. You could have him on the PK power play, whatever. I think he's going to be I mean, listen, he was, I don't want to say scapegoated, but he with the own goal at the World Juniors last year
Oh
that
yeah,
hurt that
that
hurt.
could have happened to anybody.
Yeah, so I think that he's obviously looking to, reverse that, let's say,
Tune.
memory, like,
Yeah.
help Canada win gold. That's just the World Juniors. It's really for him and the country, anything else. I mean, it's not like an indicative of his potential as an NHL player. But I think, it's a guy that, is he going to challenge Drysdale and Andrea and etc.? Like, I mean, he's pretty far along, not just in his age and his development, but also in his maturity. That I would say right now, he's like a 23-year-old. He's got the makeup, I think, of like a 23-year-old AHL defenseman. That's how I view Bonk. And so he might not put up a lot of points, but again, it's all about successfully defending, moving pucks, killing plays, contributing in more than one or two areas. And again, he's not an elite skater. He's not a glider like Drysdale, or he's just a smart guy. High panic threshold. And it's all going to boil down to the next step. But he's done with junior hockey. He's not like literally done. He's got to play another year. But
Yeah.
he is definitely at an AHL caliber or AHL level right now. He really should be out of the OHL, but they made that stupid rule and he has to stay.
Yeah. Could he be as good as like a top pair complimentary guy?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Because what you're looking at is you're looking at matchups, you're looking at reliability, you're looking at big game acumen, right? He's been in nothing but big games in his junior career and internationally. And on top of that, his coach, the guy who's been mentoring him, and his father. So if Dale Hunter is the coach, Radek Bonk is his father, have been definitely like taught him. I'm assuming. I don't think they say, "Hey, guy, I'm busy. Go do something else." Like, I think it was their job to mentor this kid and let him know. And Bonk seems like the kind of kid who asks a lot of questions, and that's what you want. He seems like the kind of kid who wants to learn. It seems like, and again, I'm just speculating. It seems like he's the kind of kid that would have a book on the opposition. That he's like, all right, who am I playing tonight? Oh, I'm playing, Guelph. Well, I got to worry about Luchenko. Whereas a lot of kids are like, what are we doing tonight? Oh, Guelph, whatever. Like, so, and not all those kids do that, but I just think he's a gamer. He has size. He's got a pretty sturdy frame. He doesn't back down from challenges. You'll see him after whistles. He'll shove a guy, get away from my crease. So it's not like he's this, passive or intimidated guy who just relies on his skill. And, look at all the points I put up. I'm Oliver Bonk. I'm a first round pick. He really is, like, I hate to say this because it's we don't know what he's going to become, but he's like the quintessential defense prospect. I really firmly believe that.
Maybe in a good case scenario, like a Petrangelo light.
I mean, Petrangelo is like he was really. I mean, light. Yeah, I would say light. I would say that if you look at the better teams around the league, maybe like a Lindholm, like a Hampus Lindholm,
Okay,
kind of guy, where or maybe like a Brodin, where you know what you're getting every night, and if they put up
a solid, reliable, consistent pro.
yeah, like maybe even like a Slavin, like just what you're getting every night. The 40 points that come, it's going to be off of obviously Bonk could shoot the puck. It's a key part to his game in the offensive zone. But for me, it's all about killing plays, defending his line, like the stick work, like anticipating like harder rounds or rims, like his pivoting, like so like you're on the back skate, opposition's coming down 2-on-2, 1-on-1. All right, we're gonna chip and chase. Why is a chip and chase effective? It makes the defenseman turn his back and the forward is skating in a straight line still. So the defenseman now has to worry about, all right, am I going to get killed? Where are my other options? If you watch Bonk on his reaction responding to the chip and chase, it's basically pro level. It's crazy. I mean, we have to see how it is when you got a guy like, let's say, Matt Rempe barreling down on you. You're going to get creamed. But I think that it's one of several advanced parts of his game.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Steve, we're coming close to the end of the show, and I just we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, Matvei Michkov. He's the number one prospect by a wide margin, as much as we like Oliver Bonk. I think we kind of know is an offensive dynamo, and maybe we want to kind of describe what's realistic for his first year, not only in the NHL, but playing under John Tortorella.
Well, all right, the first thing I'll say is this. He's definitely never played. I mean, he's going to be playing in the NHL. I think that was part of the deal. He's going to be seeing the power play. He's not going to start in Lehigh Valley. He's going to be, no matter what he does in the preseason, he will be on opening night. He will be a Philadelphia Flyer, and he's going to be a Flyer for quite a while, unless it gets, whether we have to treat him as a first overall pick. We have to treat him like a Slavkovsky or a Lafreniere, where, it's not working. Jack Hughes, go down the list of recent first-round picks where they didn't set the world on fire. When they got there, the whole world's like, bust, bust, bust. Remember, Jack Hughes is a bust. Lafreniere is a bust. Slavkovsky's a bust. All right? Delete tweet, delete tweet, delete tweet. No, I guess he's not.
Right.
That's basically what happens now. So it's par for the course. I don't think Michkov is the kind of kid that doubts his abilities. I think he is so confident that he knows if I'm not scoring, it's a little like unfortunate patch of play that I'm just unlucky. The key thing is going to be the power play, and it's going to also be, and this has always been a problem with Michkov, and I say it's a problem. I think it also had to do with that BS character accusation against him was. I said this in his draft. I said this in his draft -1 season on multiple podcasts. I even wrote about it. That the one problem that Michkov has is that he expects everybody else in his team to think what he's thinking. This could be problematic, okay? It is not a character flaw. If you say, hey, when I have the puck, you get freaking open. That's not a character. When Mark Messier did it, we said he's the greatest leader in the history of hockey because he expects a lot out of his teammates. I'm not saying Michkov is Messier, but that was always a problem. Not always a problem, but you can tell it was frustrating him, and not just shooting. I think we've already established that Matvei Michkov is a lot more than a shooter. He dominates the cycle. He dominates the wall. He dominates behind the net. You better be open. He's going to find you. His vision is impeccable. And his ability to slip the puck through any hole, any freaking lane, forget about it. So there's going to have to be, though, he's going to have to tone that down. That he's going to have to find a way to learn as much as he can about his teammates. He's going to have to realize, okay, Tyson Forster, okay, Joel Farabee, okay, Cam York, what do you like? Where do you like to position yourself? When I have the puck here, where should I expect you to be? That's on him, all right? If he doesn't do that and word comes out that the Flyers are like, hey, he's just not listening to us, he wants to be his own man, then that might be a problem. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I'm just saying that's like a worst case scenario. I don't think his work ethic, he's not like a selfish puck hog, a 1-on-4 type situation. If he does that, he's going to hear from Torts. It's going to be a lot of mentorship and on the fly education for him, though, because the KHL is not the AHL. And when he was with Sochi, the NHL, when he was with Sochi, that team stunk. And he was able to do whatever the hell he wanted. He was the big draw. That's not going to be the case with the Flyers. They're going to be really high expectations. I think that his goal-scoring ability is so fantastic and phenomenal that he will find a way to score enough to make everybody happy. That even if you get, I mean, he's not going to score. I don't think he's going to score like Ovechkin, like 40, 50 goals in his, whatever it was in his rookie year. Although he outperformed Ovechkin in the Russian league, and people might expect that. It's all going to depend on how well he plays in the beginning. Can he ride that wave? But we do have to prepare for like letdowns. We have to prepare for like any young kid. He's still freaking 20 years old. You got to prepare for a period where he might be doubting himself. He might be frustrated. And so I don't think he's that kind of guy though. But, you know, listen, if the Flyers stink and they got to sell more people off, hey, that might work out great because then the pressure's off. We stink. I could do my thing. And that might tie into part of the, again, this is again my speculation. It might tie into the Flyers' strategy of not making a lot of big moves because
this could be a soft tank this year.
But not just that,
and
not just that, like it's like, dude, if I'm a Flyers fan, I want to see Michkov. Like if I'm going to the game, I'm paying good money. I want to see Michkov. He has that kind of ability. I'm not going to put him on the Lindros level yet, but he had that ability when he came for the tournaments. He had that ability. Like Matvei Michkov and Connor Bedard were neck and neck. They were right there, 1-1 next to each other in terms of skill, upside, generational, you name it. And so that hasn't changed. He proved himself in 2 years in the KHL, and now he's going to be a Flyer. And, you know, just enjoy the ride, I think. I think it's the beginning of a really great ride.
Yeah. Hopefully so. I think I share your optimism in there. This kid's, we're looking forward to it. I mean, as someone who's followed this team, I'm going into my 55th year of following the Flyers. It probably is the most anticipation of a drafted player since Eric Lindros.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It's a big freaking deal. Steve, man, this is absolutely great. Just tell us, like, what you got. You're taking some downtime right before the season. Like, what you got coming up?
I'm not taking downtime. There's no such thing as downtime. It's round the clock. The Helinka, I just spent freaking 8 days watching the Helinka, 5 hours, 7 hours a day, writing the reports. No, it's this year. I'm going to focus on the draft. I'm going back to my roots. I've spent a lot of time. Obviously, that won't be the case with the Flyers and the prospects. I'll always follow them. But I've spent a lot of time the last couple of years focusing on the NHL prospects and development. It was a good run. I enjoyed it to a degree. But one thing I learned is that there's more ambiguity and questions surrounding the kids once they're drafted than there is before. It's a lot more fun when you're just watching them for who they are. There's no NHL affiliation. There's no pressure. There's nothing. I mean, there's pressure from the draft. So it's going to be a full sprint from now until the draft in, I don't even know if they've announced where it's going to be next year, but it's going to be nothing but the draft. And any players I watch in a given game who happen to have been drafted already, I'll have, some feedback on them, but it's going to be nothing but the draft. And anyone who's been following me since 2015 knows that was always been my forte, always been focusing on the draft. And a lot of it has to do with the fact too, that the prospect, it's oversaturated now. You got freaking 1 million people per team now covering. I mean, the Flyers alone, there's like 50 podcasts, and I know you guys have been around for a while, so you've probably seen it happen. And the problem is that I don't want to call it fake news, but you get different opinions, and there's always those who want clickbait and attention, so they might stretch the truth a little, and you can't do that. You can't do that with
never heard of that.
Draft.
Wow.
When it comes to the draft, I do nothing but watch the kids and write about it. That's it. And anyone who challenges that, just step up, because I'll be right there to tell you what I think. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I haven't been this excited for a draft year I mean, yeah, the plays are great. Hagens is a Long Island kid, so I'm happy for him. Frondel's fantastic. The Russian kid Ryabkin. You got a lot of good defensemen. Hensler, and the kid Schaefer's beautiful. For Team Canada, what a stud he is. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And you follow me on Twitter. It's going to be like it used to be, just nothing but draft updates. Maybe a little bit of World War II history and ancient warfare history mixed in. But, it's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to it. And, if you guys ever have any questions about the draft, I'm always available.
Fantastic. And people find your Substack at thedraftanalyst.substack.com and on X at The Draft Analyst on X to catch Steve's fantastic work. And I'm a subscriber to the Substack, and it's certainly worth it. And brother, you are, if anything, if anybody can say anything, you are comprehensive.
I try. I got a lot of time.
Very thorough.
My wife and my kids, my daughters are older now. So like right now, my daughters are home alone. One's 15, the other one's 12. I get to leave them home alone now. It's great. I love it. It was always with, we got to drive this thing. I say, Daddy's got a podcast. My wife's away on business. I said, Daddy's got a podcast, and that's it. They said, okay. You send them a text, you okay? I made dinner for them. They're good to go. So, it's nice to have that kind of time, because in the past, I always found way. I mean, I was doing radio interviews and podcasts from softball games, gymnastics meets at Disney World, you name it. Not anymore now. Now it's they know Daddy cares. The draft is number one, and I'll be there for moral support if they ever need me. But it's going to be a nice, interesting year this year.
That sounds great. Steve, thanks again for joining us. Hopefully down the road very shortly, we'll be talking again about, these prospects and how these players are coming along.
Yeah. And thank you guys. I love this. I love your podcast. You guys have been great. I think we're all around the same age, give or take. We all kind of remember the good old days. So I like the fact that, when I use my dated references, you guys are the only ones, it seems, that you really get them.
It's hand in glove.
We can talk about Brian Propp and the little glove. You know what I'm talking about. So
exactly. All right, brother. We're going to let you go. We really appreciate it. Have a great night.
Yeah, likewise, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
All righty. Yeah, let's wrap it up. I think we covered pretty much everything we wanted to, Chef. Nothing really much to add. So we've got a flurry of shows coming up. We don't have everything nailed down. We're going to have our Around the League with Specters Hockey coming up. I believe that's going to be the week before Labor Day. And then somewhere in between that, we might get a chance to speak with our old friend Amy Johnson, who's covering the Habs and Laval Rocket, the Habs affiliate. And we might have something to talk about with prospects and how the players in the Habs system, the Canadian system, compare to the Flyers system, because there seems to be this whole ecosphere where people were worried about that. And that became I guess a social media or a Twitter thing or an X thing that it was so pronounced that one, I guess you'd call him a prospect, a pundit, it kind of trashed his reputation. And I think people know who I'm talking about. So, but that's in the future. For now, Chef, let me give you a final word, and then we'll do the podcast contacts and all that stuff.
Yeah. No, well, my final word is, hey, it's coming. Hockey's coming soon. Just hang in there. We're halfway through August, so we got what? How many days did you say it was till preseason?
You know what? I don't know that. No, the season opens October 11th and 12th on the road at Vancouver, and then the following night versus the Calgary Flames, as the Flyers are out in the West Coast. So I would imagine, because I don't have the official dates right in front of me, about 3 weeks before that.
So
the rookies.
We're like 6-7 weeks away from some hockey. So hang in there, guys. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a very entertaining season. I'll say that. and tweet at me or whatever, and or X at me, or I don't know, whatever we're calling it nowadays, at Chef de FB on X.
You got it. And of course, you can follow the great Dan Silver at dsilver88. You can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck at O&B Puck on the X app. You can follow us also on Getter at O&B Puckcast at O&B Puckcast. We're on a multitude of podcast platforms. If you could rate and subscribe, we really appreciate it. Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon Audible, Deezer. We have a YouTube page. Just plug in there, O&B Puckcast. Facebook page as well. And if you do write a review on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review, we'll read that review like we did a couple shows ago. And we do appreciate it, because when you take the time to rate, subscribe, it moves us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcasts. And with that, we're going to call it a night. Thanks for listening. And until next time, everybody, take care.